they said they couldn't afford me.
Yeah.
That's the truth. So, well, first of all, yes, people always say, well, it's the weather or the climate, but what about it? What makes it so incredibly good for growing perfect wine grapes? The fact is that right as June, as May ends, well, let's go back to harvest. Harvest is done. We can harvest all the way through October. If you're making a dessert wine, you might keep those grapes on the vine until November, because the longer the grapes hang on the vine, the more sugar develops. So when you're making a dessert wine, you want a lot of sugar, so you can ferment it for a lot of alcohol. Because when you harvest those grapes is going to determine how much alcohol you're going to have in that wine. So it's has to be very precise. We have an instrument called a refractometer that refracts light. You go out to the vineyard, you pick a grape, you hold up the refractometer, you squeeze the grape juice at the end of the refractometer into a scale invented by a doctor of viticulture called Dr. Briggs. And that measures the weight of sugar in that grape. Ideally suited, 25 Brix is what you harvest Cabernet Sauvignon on. But there's a caveat to that. Because we get such hot weather, it brings up the sugars very quickly, but we want to wait till the fruit develops. So California is known for having a little higher alcohol, because we're waiting maybe till 26 Brix or 27 Brix, because the fruit is different than the sugar. Fruit is a characteristic of the grape. The sugar is a result of how long you leave it on the vine and how much alcohol you're going to have. Because they're fermented dry, we ferment all the sugar out, you have more alcohol.
How do you measure that alcohol?
Well, it's a formula, because if you have X amount of sugar, you know what alcohol you're going to get.
And it's pretty, the algorithm is pretty accurate. The Brix reading, you can pretty much nail what you're going to be.
Yeah.
Yes,
13.1,
exactly.
13.2%.
So, harvest is over, everything's pruned back. You don't rip out the vines. If you live to be 100 and you plant a vineyard when you're 1 year old, there's a very good chance that it'll still be producing fruit in 100 years. Not a lot of fruit, and the fruit will be very different. In fact, every year the fruit changes. And that's what we want when we're making fine wines. We don't want a wine that tastes the same every year. You want a wine that tastes the same every year? You buy a bottle of white Zinfandel. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just they make it to taste the same. Okay, so, grapes go into dormancy after harvest. Everything's pruned back. They get all their strength and all their energy and all their goodness. Springtime comes, out comes the first leaf. We call it the bud. Inside the bud is the flower. Inside the flower is the pollen. Poof, Mother Nature sets the fruit. Grapes are self-pollinating. You do not need bees. So, the fruit's just about on the vine. From the next 4.5 to 5 months, we have no rain and very little humidity. That is very important, because we don't want any water on those grapes. We don't want water from Mother Nature. We don't want to irrigate. But the grapes need water. Where are they going to get it? Exactly. The harder these fruits struggle, the harder they have to dig to the water table. That's part of the way that they will produce the finer fruit. It's all about stress and struggle.
If it rains, you have to go clean each grape off.
Say that again?
If it rains, you have to go get the water off of each grape.
Well, let me tell you what happens if it rains, okay? First of all, it creates mold. Okay, it plumps up the fruit, and they don't need to work for it.
Right.
So where it rains, let's talk about New York, Chicago in midsummer, Virginia.
But you never have rain in those 4 months, ever?
5 months almost. And if it is, it's minuscule.
So that can ruin a harvest if you get like a...
If we get a lot of it, oh, absolutely. Well, that's what I can tell you exactly that you're absolutely right. What happened in 2010 is in Burgundy, France. Now, in the old world, they named the wines after the region. Okay? So, Burgundy, France, 2010, 2011. No rain. There was a drought. The water table dropped. The roots could not reach it. It is against the law for them to irrigate. We can drip irrigate. No one. That's what makes a bad year. And then what piles onto that, making a bad year, is the fact that 2012 It poured rain the whole summer. Paris headlines, 2012, right before the harvest, worst vintage of 2 decades. Vintage is just the year the grapes are harvested. So we don't have that because we don't get rain in the summer and because we can drip irrigate if we need to.
Interesting.
So grapes come out and then, the first bud is out in springtime. We start harvest in August. It's very quick. You can come back after a week and there'll be twice as much green. And we want lots of green so lots of photosynthesis takes place. Yes.
I noticed, we were driving up, we live in La Quinta, down south, on the way up along Highway 5.
Yes.
The number of vineyards
Yes.
is astronomical.
That's why they call it the grapevine because it actually.
Just
yes.
unbelievable. And I don't remember that. I guess it's always been there, but there's no wineries there. They just grow grapes.
Now, Napa Valley produces 4% of the entire wine production of the state of California. That's it. We're only 40,000
Wow.
acres. California produces 90% of the entire production of this country.
Wow.
Yes.
So it's in other places. Yeah.
Lodi, Modesto, Fresno, all up and down
Yeah, up on the
Highway.
Highway 5. Wow. Okay, because it's amazing when you go down.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, we were just commenting because the canopies, they're out there, because you've got to cut the canopies back a little bit, and it was just, it goes on and on for miles upon miles upon miles, as far as I can see on both sides, just grape fields.
Yes, exactly.
Really a lot.
Let me get your next question. We all doing any questions anywhere?